Welcome, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. I'm your producer and host of the show, Dr. Lino Martinez. This is your motivational podcast of people's incredible journeys. Oh, yeah, let's do this. Welcome back, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. Today, I would love to introduce Federico Ayala Filigrana. Federico and his journey of healing his thyroid gland and how he healed from hypothyroid condition, which later became hyperthyroid. How he went from being nearly prescribed dead to having a thriving life. This is a journey of overcoming doubt and fear. I love this topic. Welcome, Federico, to A Little Less Fear podcast. So nice to finally meet you.
Lino, my pleasure. I'm very delighted to be here and speak about this topic that is often times not so available. And just like your journey, I think it's a powerful message that can help a lot of people.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being open and ready to talk about a topic like this. A lot of people, I feel, are quick to go straight into medications or surgeries rather than to look at other best possible outcomes that could occur or incur in their life if they give in to a different way of thinking, a different way of feeling. And so that's why I'm really interested in learning about your journey. Tell us about your journey with your thyroid. How did this even begin?
Yes. So basically what happened is that when I turned 14th, I started to do a lot of weightlifting.
Okay.
And when I was doing weightlifting, I started to take a lot of creatine and proteins and stuff like that. And then, I mean, that was probably like some of the physical disruptions. I'm not saying that drinking creatine or protein triggers, hypothyroidism, but I'm just describing what was I doing just when I got diagnosed. So I really became dependent on sports for happiness because I was born with not such a big thoracic capacity. So sometimes I would struggle for breath when I was like younger. Like almost every breath was like if I was not happy, if there was like tension in the room,
It was hard for you to kind of take a
it was
deep
hard
breath
for
and
me
it
to
felt
breathe.
really tight.
Yeah, so sports like somehow put me in this state in which I was able to breathe. So I became really like hardcore with sports.
Okay.
And out of that, I probably have some injuries and stuff like that. But that was like my medicine. So I started to overdo it. Sometimes I would go to the gym for 4 hours a day straight.
Wow.
I would hit the gym for 4 hours,
Holy moly.
like, and I had like a lot of muscle. So it was good. Like I had my enjoyment with it. Like I would like play Rocky Balboa and ta ta ta, like. But at what happened when I turned 14 is that my family separated, and all the way. I mean, we had like 2 or 3 years of problems all the time at home and discussions and not understanding. So that culminated when I was 14, and that affected me a lot emotionally. Then on top of that, I received like another combo, which was when I was 14, was the time which Mexico basically all the fantasy that we had as a country, because when I was born, Mexico was a very prosperous and safe country. And then my family split, and then on top of that, the cartels take over Mexico. Then my father started to have some economic uncertainties, like this image that I had of my father as the one that solves everything, like suddenly flipped. I was in the middle of, I was growing like 1 centimeter a day or something like that,
Yeah.
and not knowing what was I going to do with my future. Um, Feeling, even though I was doing sports in school, I was like not performing so well. So this was the time in which thyroid hit me. And the first thing that started to happen because of all of these realities, that I started to become very anxious. Like, okay, now somebody got kidnapped by the cartels, and now my family is a mess. And I'm in the middle of deciding like where to go to high school. Um, Not having a fixed place also. So what started happening is that I started to become very anxious, and then at night I wouldn't stop going to the toilet. Like I would go to the toilet first. It started with three or four times a night, and then it turned to be 15 times per night.
Oh, wow.
And when this happened, my mom thought, "Oh my God, just like many of your family, you're becoming diabetic."
Right.
And that added like a little bit of
Even
fear.
more stress. Yeah.
But then we went to check, and like a few weeks after that, and it turned out that I was not diabetic. I was a hypothyroid. And yeah, that was when I found out. I found out when I was 14 that I had this condition, and I didn't really know what it meant. No one really thought, like the persons there barely even mentioned that, like, it had something to do with growth and regulation of weight. And I mean, but it was like a 20-minute or 10-minute talk that they had with me and my parents. Like I didn't know how bad this could get. And then I started to receive treatment. So I started to take sodic level thyroxine, which is a pork hormone that you take, that basically makes your thyroid, work in a certain way. Um, so that's how it started, you know.
And what happened when
Uh,
you started to take this? This medication.
Yeah, the first doctor that I went to see, it was like I didn't have a lot of connection to the doctor. Like it was like so. I mean, uh, uh, I don't know. Like it was so weird because I don't even remember very well the face of the doctor. So what started happening is that I still felt bad. I still, like, there was no. It was just like, okay, I thought, take your medicine, because if not, this is gonna get worse.
Sure.
So at least it didn't get worse. Horrible. My concentration was really bad. I couldn't sleep. I had anxiety. I was sleeping normally 2 hours per night.
Whoa. So the
Uh,
so the so the
yeah.
medication, you weren't sleeping. You had increased anxiety, and so basically the medication wasn't helping.
I would say it was more like a psychological thing, and I could feel the effects of the medication, but no real progress. Maybe a few months later, I started to like sleep a little bit better.
Hmm.
Um, so what happened is that I started making at the same time adjustments in diets, and I was able to, let's say, move from sleeping 2 hours to
Hmm.
sleeping 4 hours. Um, and then, of course, in during the day, I would be tired the whole time. And what happened later on is that 2 years later, I was in Austin, and my father read a book by someone very famous called Dr. Rida Haram, and he took me to him in Houston, Texas, and I started to be medicated by him. And it was a slightly better approach. I was able to sleep a little bit more. I was able to kind of feel a little bit better. just
Uh-huh.
slightly better, because he was very, at least he gave me like full attention, from the way that, he looked at things. He was
Mhm.
doing whatever he could to, keep record of how I was feeling. And so he was like really good at playing with the measurements, and he was an expert. Like, he wrote a bestseller.
Yeah.
And So I can say that it gave me time. It bought me some time, and this is what this can do. It kind of buys you time, because if not, I probably would have been like pissing at night 15 times per
Oh
night.
my goodness.
So when I started with this doctor, I would say that at night I would be slightly less anxious. I would still go to pee like 5 times per night. Um, but I would, it wasn't that bad, but still, like, my concentration levels, and my capacity to memorize things. Um, so what happens there is that I think that the body, reacted, and it kind of kept me half alive. But at the same time, all of these other things were piling up, like no clarity in what your future is going to be, no real capacity to concentrate. So yeah, you're kind of feeling half alive, which is not bad. But then all of these other things start to pile up until they hit you. You know?
So when you're saying that you're starting to not feel alive, meaning that you were just kind of feeling like a zombie, like kind of just
Yeah,
like going through the daily process. Okay, now I'm just gonna eat. Now I'm just gonna go back to sleep. But you didn't have motivation.
yeah. I mean, I had motivation for things that teenagers have, like going to prom, and joining the basketball team. I mean, it looked normal,
Uh-huh.
but I mean, it looked a little bit normal, but people were always like, he's a little bit slow, you
Okay.
know. Uh, uh, so you know, it was just enough to get by, but not enough to like fully activate
Your full potential, the
your
full
system,
thyroid. Yeah.
or to yeah.
And
So
so
that
this.
was like the beginning of it, right?
Okay. So then this was to treat the hyperthyroidism.
To treat hypo, which later
It's hypo.
became
Hypo.
hyper.
Okay. Hypo.
Yes.
This was treating hypo. The doctor was adjusting the medication back and forth. And when did it change
Yeah.
from hypo to hyper?
I think it started doing that when I was 20. And the way I noticed it is that I started to have like little heart attacks at night. So yeah, like I would feel like, and then I would be like, yeah, like at some nights I thought, well, I'm gonna die, you
Your
know,
heart was accelerating. It was beating really, really fast.
really fast. Yeah. And having like violent like rhythms sometimes. Um, so yeah, what happened is that for 6 or 7 years, I kind of felt like half alive, and I was thankful for it. But then what started happening is that as all of these other things piled up, like you don't know what career to choose. You're just basically just passing to go to college, just barely making the grades. And then
Yeah.
when you go to college, you are like, oh my God, like, you know, what is this? Because I didn't even choose the career that I wanted. I just chose what was there.
Uh-huh.
And like then all of these things started to pile up until I said, like, so I'm gonna be, you know, today a lot of people are like, oh my God, I don't want to have a corporate job. I want to pursue my purpose. But for me, it was like I was seeing my life as if, okay, I'm gonna have a corporate job, like an X job, and on top of that, I'm going to underperform. So imagine how motivating that can be.
Oh my goodness. So here you are in school, and now you're starting to get these palpitations. You're
Yeah.
in a field and studying something that you really don't feel passionate about, but you're
Yeah.
going through the motions. And then what happens? What keeps happening after that?
well, it starts to get worse because you add up all the emotional and circumstantial baggage of like, okay, in a few years I have to be independent. My parents are concerned, like they're not happy with the decisions that I'm taking. So it also until there was a point of so much anxiety, which you, no matter how much medication you're taking, or how good the doctor is, suddenly you can't breathe again.
My goodness.
So,
So what was the next line of treatment after that?
so what happened is that when I turned like 22, the heart problems started to get worse. Like I would get like a lot of those palpitations. It was like every day, you know.
It was probably
Uh,
also followed with sweating and other,
Sweat. Oh,
yeah,
oh yeah. It's good that you brought it up. It's really good that you brought that point up, because the sweating wasn't only sweating. This, like, there is something called chromatrophia or something like that. And what started happening is that I would wear a white shirt, and then I would wake up at night and see it, and it was
no.
yellow or red.
Oh, red. Wow.
Like especially the area near my heart and my throat. I would
Uh-huh.
like wake up and like, what the, so I would be like messing up my shirts all the time. And I was like, oh my God, I gotta keep on buying shirts because I'm sweating red or yellow. And I didn't know what that was. And very few people, this is also another 1 in a billion, or at least 1 in a 10 million disease. It's called chromatrophia. So what happens is that you can even sweat blue.
That's really interesting. So what makes it red though? Why were you sweating like red jello? What was that?
I believe it was toxins, like and and the funny thing is that it also smelled like sulfur.
Interesting.
So, in the past, when I kind of read about it, I found out that, when this happens, this is also why, a lot of religious associations with bad things. And who knows, maybe toxins represent a certain dimension also in which you are living, which is like very toxic, very,
Sure.
dark also.
I can see
Because
that.
back then I was also, and I don't want to have a religious connotation to it, but if you have probably watched Dr. Masanobu Emoto's work on water,
I haven't.
um, so this is like water starts to, for example, it explains how music affects us.
Yes.
So back then I realized that, I was listening to a lot of like heavy metal and like very dense
Mm-hmm.
music. So, and I didn't know that that wasn't helping my process. Like later on, I found out that Chris Cornell from Audioslave committed suicide. This guy from Linkin Park also did. Um, and then, but you are not aware of it. And so you are sick and at the same time tapping to those
Frequencies.
dimensions,
Yeah.
which are amazing. I had a great time listening to that. It was like a catharsis to all my problems.
Sure.
But then you find out that, hey, the music that you're listening to, most of these people are committing suicide or like, you know, uh,
Cutting themselves. Yeah.
hurting themselves. So everything is connected.
It is connected. And
And
so, but I take it you made that connection when you started healing, correct?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I can't imagine that you figured that out right then and there. Like, oh, well, I have to stop this music. You were kind of in it at that
yeah.
moment.
You are not aware, and your
No,
parents are not aware either. And
right.
probably if somebody's listening to and somebody has this type of disease, like no one is aware because no one teaches us these basic things that
Sure.
music can be for healing, but it
It
and
sure can.
and I don't know. I mean, there is no way to force these situations. It's just a
Right.
process.
Exactly. So let's go back to the sweating. So you were having a lot of palpitations, you were having a lot of sweating, the red sweating, and things were getting worse for you. So did you go back to were you still seeing the same doctor in Houston at that time?
yeah, I kept on seeing him until I was 24. When I turned 24, what happened is that my father took me to a retreat called the Mountain of Peace. And in the Mountain of Peace, I met this Kung Fu teacher who also practiced Chinese medicine and meditation like Buddhism.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I associated him more back then to with Kung Fu and Chinese medicine because basically he approached me from that angle. And so we just went there because he was teaching how to cook in a way that the food preserves the energy, like the chi, you
Oh,
know?
I love that.
Yes. And what happened to me is that as soon as I hit the temple, because he actually lives in this temple, an incredible kung fu teacher. He's like the number one guy to mention in Mexico.
I love
Uh,
this.
amazing energy. I saw like things that are like unbelievable with him. But yeah, it was like I had arrived to like this like Kung Fu Panda kind of place, which was like um he was doing all of these things, and the funny thing was that he wasn't really talking too much about it. Like um he wasn't like approaching me too much from the, oh, you're sick of your thyroid. It was more like, hey, why don't we're gonna eat this, and what would you like to put here?
Yeah.
And did you know that ginger, could be useful instead of garlic? Um, and on top of that, I would wake up in the morning and do kung fu with him or tai chi or something like that. So I was just gonna stay for 3 days, and I ended up staying more than 10 days with him. Um, and while I was there, I didn't take the medication, and I felt really alive. Um, and
Was
when
that the
that
deal for you to go there and not take the medication, or did
no,
you decide to not take the medication while you're there?
no, I actually had the medication on my back in my backpack, and then something like I just felt like I don't know, I'll just like leave it today, and then the next day I kind of put it down. I kind of put it down.
Uh-huh.
And then after that I retook the medication, but then I started to feel weird, and then after a few months I decided to like drop it when I was 25. I dropped the medication when I was 25 after 10 years of taking it.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
So you decided to stop taking the medication at 25, but you were also, I guess, inspired by the energy of this kung fu master because you were
Yeah.
able to see a different side of yourself, a different side of your health that you hadn't seen before when
Yeah.
this kung fu master was showing you what could be done with energy, with the energy of food and the energy of nature. I can imagine as
Yeah.
well.
And your own energy too, because he met me where I was. Like that was and this is one thing that I want to say. Sometimes we want to create formulas, but he met me where I was, and he taught me one style of meditation which is called the macrocosmic orbit. uh
Macrocosmic orbit.
yes.
Okay, go on. I love the sound of that.
So it's basically, I mean, a lot of meditations go like, well, not a lot, but I would say today, um, for example, many places like the Art of Living or Sadhguru, I mean, they're starting to see the necessity that the current world has for something like Kriya or something like the macrocosmic orbit, which is similar to it, but more in the Buddhist, point of view. So it's basically the one where you go up and down through all your chakras and you start rubbing them. And this creates like an activation, right? And yeah, so that was a very powerful tool. And when I first started it, it was like it felt like really good. But it didn't show me its power until a few years later. It didn't show me its power for And now I practice something slightly different, but similar in a way. So what happened is that when I was 25, on top of all my problems that I hadn't finished college, I didn't know what to study. And then I went, because I still had some issues sleeping. My intuition told me, go and volunteer for 1 year. And I wanted to be near the beach. So I lived 1 year volunteering, camping by the beach.
That sounds amazing. I would love to do that. Wow.
It was amazing. Like this was like the healing, like all my sleeping issues faded finally until I was 25 and I did this. I was just getting food from places and like getting a place to put my tent, and I did that for a year. So I started to really go deep into the meditation and doing, an activity.
Federico,
But
what do
still,
you
yeah.
what do you think it was about the beach, like being there for a year, that helped you start sleeping again? What was it about that?
Um, I think it was the elements, the contact with the elements. In Buddhism, in all the tradition, in all the spiritual traditions, there is this contact with the elements that help you balance something.
Yeah.
So for me, a lot of it was this contact with the wind and with the salt of the water, and at the same time with the earth, because you are touching the earth.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Now there
so
there is like a whole study, a proven study of how much just being in contact with earth like helps you de-inflammate all of your body. So
absolutely. Yes. Yes. It's called grounding, correct?
grounding, yes. I mean, and this is scientifically proven, like there
It
is
is.
ample evidence of this.
Well, because we're electromagnetic humans and we need that charge from the earth. And especially if you have your shoes off and whether you're touching grass or mud or dirt or the sand or the ocean, you're having contact with the earth and the earth is then healing you through its vibrations. So
Yeah,
innately, intuitively, your intuition said, do this. And you
yeah,
went and you followed your intuition. I'm actually really impressed that you followed your intuition and that you had even an awareness of your intuition given the condition that you were in at that time. So I think that's really incredible. Like you're like, okay, I'm gonna go do this. And so in
yeah,
that intuition, your higher self knew that you desperately wanted to be healed and that you were trying everything that you could. And the
yeah,
one thing you hadn't tried is earth healing. Getting
yeah,
the healing elements of natural Mother Earth to go in through your body's system vibrationally and to heal you from inside and outside. I mean, all your complete aura, your energetic all of it. And
yeah,
so you were there for a year, you started to sleep, and as a lot of people
yeah.
know, when you start to sleep, things start to heal. And so you finally started sleeping and you finally started to come into a wellness version of yourself. When you were at the beach for a year, did you take this medication as well, or did you leave it at this point? You left it
No,
at this
I
point.
was no longer taking the medication, and I was feeling very well. I mean, I had already like a norm and more than normal like energy. Like compared to the average people, I would already have more energy than the average people. Back then I still hadn't healed like completely. I knew I healed from thyroid after that. My healing came after that. I mean, I already felt like some sort of normal, but I kind of received a proof of the healing later on, like a physical proof,
What was that
um,
physical proof?
that manifested in a. All right, so I'll tell you. I'll arrive to that right now. But what happened in that year at the beach is that I met the mother of my daughter, um, and we were not together. We actually just were together that year. That was by the beach. But I've kept contact with my daughter, and I actually lived some years in Germany because of her. So that made things a little bit complicated, but at the same time it kind of gave me the strength to keep on pushing, to not like give up,
Uh,
because there is always this element that makes you wanna like, so it was hard because, for example, when I went to Germany, I went and I worked delivering food, or at a restaurant. And so I had to face many things. And then what happened is that just at that time, because of the amount of confusion that I had, it was like, why is this happening to me? The country went the way it did. I have no future ahead of me, no clear future. Now the mother of my girl is leaving me. Uh, my relationships were a mess. I didn't know how to, I would sometimes like have, you know, good relationships, but I couldn't sustain them somehow.
mhm.
And when I was 26, I entered a big crisis because of this, because of the rupture between the mom of my and me. And, and I said I got really depressed again. And I remember that I bought like 20 packs of cigarettes and I started like smoking and smoking and smoking. I closed the room in my mom's house, which was ridiculous at age 26. And I just kept on smoking and smoking. My mom would be like, "What are you doing?" Well, like, and I would be like, "Leave me alone."
Were you
And
smoking out of
what
anxiety?
happened is that
Were you smoking out of anxiety, or were you hoping to somehow
depression.
a depression? Okay,
I was like completely torn by the situation,
sure.
my emotional situation. And what happened is that I really hit the bottom there. I started to like spit blood after a few days of like continuously smoking.
Hmm.
I started to like spit blood. And at that moment, I really said, well, either you get up now or you go, because like I don't want to be a burden to everyone. And what happened there after 7 days of smoking, like from morning till dawn, I felt this huge necessity to reconnect to the meditation in a deeper level that the Kung Fu teacher had given me.
Uh-huh.
Hello?
Yes.
Um, so what happened is that I really closed the room and I meditated for easily 48 hours without noticing it. Like
Wow.
like I just lost complete sense of time and space. And what happened there was crazy, which I was able to have a thyroid orgasm, like an orgasm. In like I experienced something even more blissful than an orgasm that the normally one we know, where I felt this huge power just coming from the thyroid. Um, and from then on, things really changed. I started to meditate every day. I would wake up every day at 5 in the morning, and I used to go to this amazing tropical place that is the city of Villahermosa, which is like full of crocodiles, and it looks like the Lion King sunset or
Oh, that
sunrise.
sounds
I mean, I
gorgeous.
was just delighted and thankful to be there.
Sure.
Well, our mind normally is always thinking, no, I should go to New York, or I should be in Los Angeles, or I should be in this. And I was just so thankful to be in this place. So that was an important, but the real sign came 1 year later when I decided to take a 12-day fasting program. Um, which I also, it's if I'm mentioning it, it's not like part of my program right now, but it could be a tool if things
Sure.
are not working out. So what happened in the 12-day program was that at day 7 of the fasting, there was a line of red and black things that came from my heart all the way to the thyroid, like burps of bubbles, very kind of disgusting. And like, but on the seventh day, my body was just getting all that out.
Yeah, all
And
the
from that
toxins.
day on, I really, that was it.
That was on the seventh day that you started when you
On the
started getting
seventh
all
day,
the seventh days when all those toxins started coming out. What made you want to fast? Was it a retreat that you joined or a doctor recommendation or it's just something was it another intuitive budge that you had? Hey, you know what? Try fasting.
the thing what happened is that my father did it for a shorter time, and I have to admit that back then my father was a huge support, because he was like also learning a lot about how to heal and stuff like that. And when he did it, I said, I also want to do it. It was more like a challenge. I already felt like with good energy, and but still it was like, I hadn't completed my degree. I had no vision of what was coming in my life. And I guess that sometimes you want to go into those dimensions just to kind of feel something like you're doing something good, you know?
Sure.
But I was surprised. I wasn't expecting to have like that sign,
Yeah.
and since then, things really turned way, way, way better for me. Like,
What was included in that fasting? Were you drinking water? I mean, what was it water only or and no food whatsoever?
mainly water with some minerals and a little bit of fruit juice. That would be, and then, the first 1 or 2 days you eat fruits, and the last 1 or 2 days you eat a little bit of fruit. So, yeah, but this was in the Yucatan jungle in a very, very beautiful place. And yeah, it was a very special moment, but that's what I got. I mean, there are many, many things that happened during that fasting, including like very lucid dreams, which is a part that I wanna touch also with you, which is, I think, is important, because it's also have something to do with this. But step by step, I didn't started to notice, how everything is. In a way.
Oh yeah, absolutely intertwined for sure. And so when you
Hmm.
started getting you went through the fasting 12 days, correct? You said it was 12 days. So you're
Yeah,
done with the fasting. What was the next in your
yeah.
healing journey after that? What was the next? Was it the lucid dreaming?
No, no, lucid dreaming. I've just been exploring it more the last 2 years.
Uh-huh.
Um, but after that, I really didn't. I kind of stopped. Like, I didn't like, push myself to any hard, like, spiritual training or something like
Mm.
that. Um, So, I mean, I also want to specify that I don't want to, just say this is a spiritual. It's a connection of everything, and in a way, it's also your will, your determination,
Yeah.
um, and that's how things started to manifest for me. And at some points, I took breaks because I think it's necessary also not to take one challenge after the other. So I think after that, I just took some years in which, I didn't feel like I needed any other challenge. I finished my degree.
Congratulations.
Uh, I
Congratulations.
finished as a engineer,
That's excellent.
industrial engineering. Yeah, I mean, I'm not fully working on that. Mainly, I took my degree. I took it because it was an opportunity for me to work and at the same time study. Um, But after that, I really started to get in contact with plant healing and healing, also collaborating. 5 years ago, I collaborated for the biggest heal your thyroid place in Mexico. Is the only one, and it's actually having hundreds of people, testimonials of people who have recovered from the condition.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and in the US, there are a few people on Instagram that you can reach and that are already having a lot of testimonials. Yeah, but what I think is that, when you feel the calling from somebody,
Yeah,
when you resonate with the person, this is where you have to go,
definitely.
independently of your mental constructions or so, because sometimes you say, no, what I would rather go with this guy, or I would rather go to that guy. But if you resonate with it, this is where you have to go.
If you resonate with it, that's your intuitive calling. That's your true intuition pulling you.
Yeah,
That's true
yeah,
resonance right there.
yeah,
And so then you took some time off, which I love that you pointed that out, because you can be on this wellness healing journey, but if you're constantly pushing at it and pushing at it, I mean, you're not really allowing yourself to really start living that new life that you've worked so hard for. So at some
yeah,
point, it's like lay down for a minute, take a deep breath, and start enjoying what you've created, everything that you've worked for, and start living
yeah,
your life a little more fruitfully. And so you
yeah,
were able to put that part down for a bit. You went to school, you completed your degree, industrial engineering, and then now you're helping people doing during their thyroid activation is what you call it, right? Healing thyroid
yeah.
activation.
Activate your thyroid, activate your voice too. Because
Activate.
it's a
Tell me
journey of
more about
courage.
that. Activate your thyroid and activate your voice.
Yes. So before I go into that, I just wanted to add one thing, and one thing is that, surprisingly enough, I had always been mediocre at school, but I became the best in number one in engineering. Like, I graduated with the highest GPA that someone could graduate. Like, really.
That's excellent, Federico. Heck yeah, that's awesome. It's like all those struggles and
Yeah.
everything that
So
you had
that
gone
was like
through.
you were saying that.
What's that? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
um, that was me harvesting already some of the fruits, and it was also
Yeah.
important to take the break, like you said. So coming back to activate your thyroid and activate your voice. So I named it that way because I wanted it to be like more specific than healing. So many of these things are just activations,
They
and
are.
yeah, it's an activation to your voice. So many people with that, I mean, this is in, I'm talking for people that know about alternative healing and people that don't know. The people that know, they know that it's associated with not speaking your truth. Mainly, there are many other associations with the Vishuddhi chakra or the thyroid,
Yeah.
but the main one is going to be that you are not speaking your truth,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
the world is eating at you and you are not able to find the courage. So, for example, in yoga or meditation, they normally, when you are meditating upon this point, there is about calling in your courage, you
Mm-hmm.
know? It's the point of the vacuum also. Is the point of, for example, in India or in the ancient traditions, is also associated to Shiva, who is the destructor of all the concepts that you have and the creator of the new paradigm. So at the same time, most of the toxins that we have end here. It's very weird that we start to get toxins going all the way to your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So the thyroid receives one of the last, it's basically the last filter that you have for all of these toxic emotions, because when they start to go to your brain, you start having like mental disorders. So as you're going to notice, like kids normally are not having mental disorders because many of their organs are still working properly. But when your toxins start to go beyond the thyroid, it also is associated with Alzheimer, schizophrenia, all of these issues too. So why the thyroid is mainly like mostly women being affected is because women often are, especially in countries like Mexico, they are kind of put down, or there is a lot of fear about your work and, the macho culture. But even in the United States, there is a report that says that one out of every 8 women will have a problem with the thyroid.
Hmm.
And maybe is because sometimes women wanna, keep on having the bond of a relationship. They choose not to, you know, uh,
Speak up for
to
themselves or what they.
disrupt or to break. So they choose more like, let's keep it at a certain level because if not, everything is gonna fall apart. And there is an element of that could be rational about it, you know. Uh, but at the same time, it's like I also think that we have to find a way to be spiritual and to speak our truth with enough wisdom not to be breaking the bonds that we have with people. So this is going to be it's a big area to cover. How can you speak your truth and not necessarily make everyone run away from you?
It's learning how to speak your truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's really interesting that you brought up the fact because I mean I was thinking about that earlier how it affects women more often, and it definitely makes sense because women, I mean, throughout history have been kind of just quieted down a lot more because of it being
Yeah.
more of a machismo society and across all cultures. And so I
Yeah.
mean if women are constantly not able to speak their truths, uh, things around their throat area is going to be affected. And I mean, and the thyroid being one of the easiest things to be affected because of stress or
Yes.
being quieted down and not being able to live their truths authentically. And that really, especially when especially when women are trying to be someone that they're not and they're doing it for the family or for their spouse and not putting their needs first. I mean, they feel that they can't put their needs first at that point, and they can't even speak their needs at that moment. I mean, no wonder
Yes.
dis-ease starts to develop in that area. That's really powerful right there.
It is. It is. Yeah, because we have a lot of this conditioning of like, if I say my truth, then people are gonna run away. But then this is why my book is called The Voice in the Labyrinth, because it's not like we were born with the tools to speak our truth a lot. Like there has to be a very big, a drastic change in the way you view things, because if I look at you and I am in a defensive mode, speaking my truth is going to hurt you.
True. If you're in a defensive mode, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So it's even
So
even learning how to speak, even if it's the volume of your voice and how
yeah.
you're presenting that voice. I mean, that's a lot of it. A lot of it goes with it. Oh my goodness.
So how do we connect with our voice? How do we, for example, Mexico has an incredible supportive tradition that helped me to see like, what is this? Like, because okay, I had already healed physically, but I was still seeing things with a certain eye, with a certain perspective. So in the local traditions of Mexico, there was something called círculos de palabra bonita or círculo de palabra dulce. And this is part of the whole traditional temazcal setting, of singing, actually, what are you doing in temazcal, which is the Mexican sweat lodge? You are speaking your truth.
Yeah.
They would give you, the little thing, and actually, it's a very interesting process, because when you are taking this sonaja, I don't know how to say it in English.
Wait, which word?
You take sonaja, like
Sonaja. It's
they
a
give you your.
the sonaja is like a not a maraca, right?
It's similar. It just makes this
Yeah.
sound. So in temazcal, which is the, like you could call it sweat lodge, but it's not that. It's much more than that. And actually, it would just take one other or 10 other sessions to explain what it is. But when they give you the
The
talking
rhythm.
stick, and you do this, you're speaking what's happening to you, and then people notice even like how you're shaking your hand with it.
Oh, how interesting.
So in a way, for example, for me, I've been going to temazcals almost every single week for the last 4 years, and it has been a process of learning how to speak my truth, learning also how to listen to others. And I cannot be more thankful for the process that I've been having. On top of that, on top of learning that, the fire really facilitates. You see, normally when we're speaking to people, we need sometimes, like, you're gonna laugh at this one, but we need a plant normally to talk with people, or we need alcohol, which is a plant or a mushroom.
Sure.
Alcohol is a mushroom. That's what it is. So if you notice, people need coffee, a plant, to talk to each other, or they need alcohol to talk, or they need a cigarette, right? Because if not, there is something kind of weird about it. But what happens when you are in front of the fire in the temazcal is that you are in front of something so purifying, and you are really being cleansed, you know, in a way. So speaking your truth there, I'm not gonna say it's like a magic wand. I'm not gonna say go to a temazcal and then you're gonna learn how to speak your truth.
Sure.
But it invited me to see that speaking your truth is also connected with being really aware of what other people are saying.
That is so true. When you speak your truth, because you're speaking your truth, you're no longer clouding yourself with walls or even personal judgment. So if you are then speaking your truth, you are allowing yourself to actually listen and be present with other people, and as they speak, you are fully able to listen at that point. Because listening is
Yeah,
also a feeling. And at that point, you can feel the vibration of the other person communicating to you and in what element they are in, and really take in their energy and give them your energy with undivided attention at that point. That really makes sense. That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that.
yes,
I love that. And I
yeah,
love the fire element, Federico. As you're saying that, I'm thinking, like, have I ever spoken in front of a fire like that? Like, that sounds really incredible, using all the elements of the earth. And I really think it's fascinating that you brought up the fact that people need a plant to talk. It's like, well, what other elements can we use that the earth provides that we can also activate our throat chakra or thyroid activation, and find ways to communicate using other elements other than what people have been doing for thousands and thousands of years. That's the most easiest, which is a plant. And in the fire element, also with you, the water element, when you were at the ocean for a whole year, you're using the water element at that point to communicate with your body, mind, and soul and bring it all together. It's really
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah. Yeah, in Temazcal, they actually play with the four elements. Like they actually bring in water, like in the form of steam. And, also they do like this waving inside. So it's a play of elements. but mainly is fire, which is penetrating through our barriers. People are all the time having these walls, are building these walls, and then there is this excess of personal identification. And when you are too identified with yourself, are you truly listening?
Mhm.
So this is the point that a lot of people like. It takes a lot of guidance because there are many programs that are talking about like how to identify from yourself. And if somebody is listening right now, that sounds crazy. And the thing is that it's not what we think it is, and I think it has to be met at a level. You're not going, you're going to have somebody sometimes to carry you to cross the river. And what happens is that you're never going to be completely like self de-identified, but you're going to be able to listen more. So a lot of people are today concerned about how to be more conscious, but I think it's more important to cultivate awareness, because if we cultivate awareness, what happens is that we certainly will arrive at certain levels of consciousness.
Right. Yes,
You know,
absolutely. It's all about awareness at this point. Federico, what an amazing journey you've had. Thank you so much for all these
thank
gems. You've given me all kinds of little gifts today. I really appreciate the awareness that you've given me today. For real, this is really a true gift. Thank you so much. Federico, how can our viewers, our watchers, and our listeners get a hold of you and your coaching program that you do to activate your thyroid and activate your voice?
Yes. So the easiest way is through my Instagram, um, which is new. I just like started, taking in again people after working for Heal Your Thyroid. So right now, I could I could put it in the chat, or I don't know if you have my Instagram, so I
I
don't know
do. I
how
have
could
it.
we do
Yes,
this.
and I'll also be putting it in the show notes and everything. Yeah, definitely.
So that's the best way. Just reach out and send me a message. I have just a few things on my Instagram, but the way I want to do this is just have conversations with people like you. I don't want to be just like posting stuff like because I have a lot of things to do. So this is one thing that I will tell people that want to reach out. Just reach out, send a message, and it's a personal thing. It's not. I don't like. I'm more of a traditional guy who likes to just come and reach out, and if we have a chat and you resonate with it, we go forward with this.
Very beautiful journey of yours and beautiful future ahead. Thank you for sharing your incredible life and how you went from struggling with your thyroid at 14 years old to completely thriving now and doing really well for yourself. Really keep it up, keep it going. And this is really an incredible motivating journey of yours. Keep sharing your story. You never know who you can motivate and whose life you're changing just by telling them what you've gone through and what you're still going through. And it's just really a light. Your light is starting to shine, and keep shining your light along the path. Keep going.
Thank you, Lino. I do. Oh, wait a second. I actually have to go. Um, but it's been a pleasure. Like the hour went so fast. uh, but I'm really thankful that we had this space of time to talk to each other. It's been fantastic. Um, yeah, feel free to reach out, everyone, and I'll write you an email. As soon as possible. I
Great.
guess.
I did have a poem to share. Do you have a few minutes, or it's actually
Oh
a couple
yeah.
minutes? Okay, great. Let's just finish this off here. I wrote it in Spanish, and then I'll translate it in English. It's really short, and then we'll stay connected after this. This poem here that I wrote. Thank you so much for motivating me. I really appreciate it. So here it is in Spanish, and then I'll say it in English. Um. Okay. Hierbas encima de mi cuerpo fueron las deudas de resentimientos de mi cuerpo sobre mi cuerpo, entre mis venas, ahogando mi salud con lágrimas, lágrimas hechas de miedo, Colgué mis paraguas y empecé a ver la verdad de la vida. Mi vida nació cuando dejé de guardar dolores. Renací cuando empecé a enamorarme de la vida, de mi cuerpo, de mi pasado, de mis cicatrices y de ayer. Ahora las hierbas encima de cuerpo florecen de nuevo. And so in English, weeds over my body was the debt of resentment of my body, over my body, and in between my veins. In drowning my health with tears, tears made of fears, I hung up my umbrella and began to see the truth of life. My life was born when I stopped saving pain. I was reborn when I fell in love with life, with my body, with my past, with my scars, and with yesterday. Now weeds over my body have bloomed into flowers. And that's it. I get pumped up, I
That's
swear.
it.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Oh my God,
Federico.
it resonates a lot with this experience and
Yeah,
bloom.
you
You know,
felt that?
your thyroid can bloom. This is what I'm telling people here. This can bloom.
It can bloom. Your thyroid can turn into a beautiful flor, a beautiful flower for sure. And you are a beautiful flower, Federico. Muchas
You
gracias.
too,
Thank you for
Lino.
being on A Little Less Fear podcast. Looking forward to keeping in touch. Keep
Keep
going.
in
Shine
touch,
on.
man. All
Muchas
right, man.
gracias. Cuídate.
See you.
Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to A Little Less Fear podcast. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends and your family about A Little Less Fear podcast. And if you are interested in being on my show, feel free to leave me an email at a little less fear at gmail.com. Or if you have any questions or comments and you also want to leave me an additional message, you can also do so from my website, leaving an inquiry at www.alittlelessfear.com. You can get a copy of my book on Amazon, Amazon Kindle, and Amazon Kindle Unlimited, also titled A Little Less Fear. And thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate all the support. Leave me a review if you get a chance. I love to receive feedback, questions, and comments. And any way that I can be a support to you, please let me know. Thank you so much. I love you. Wishing you love, light, happiness, and many blessings your way.